Good afternoon. Hi there. How are you? Welcome into Red Pill 101, episode 22. Why are American men not getting laid? Also, we've subtitled this the Sex Recession as well. My name is Pat Campbell, radio talk show host from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I am joined by Rollo Tomasi, the high priest of the Manosphere.
The cult leader.
Right, high priest of the Manosphere, also known as the rational male. Rollo, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good to be back. How do you like my new background? Yeah,
it's like it's got that. It's like we're in a fishing
shack. It's the fishing shack. Welcome to the fishing shack.
Babe Winkleman, the fishing magician. We need that talking walleye.
I'm experimenting with new backgrounds, so we'll see.
Where did you get that, by the way? Where'd you get the material?
Oh God, I found it on some. Probably it was a drop shipper place. I don't know. They just had a bunch of these. There's different ones. Like you could get like Tahiti and stuff in the back. And I'm like, it's better than a green screen. You could just put whatever you want back here.
Have you gotten any feedback on that yet from any of
it's been pretty neutral. I think it's certainly better than the palm trees and all the other crap that I have here on the side of the wall here. But
gotcha.
It's working. I guess it's working for now. We'll see how it goes, and then maybe I'll change it up later.
All right, let's. You want to start today with this story out of Maryland. It's a high school in Maryland where teen boys, they got in trouble because they were rating their female classmates based on looks, and the girls are fighting back, and they were saying that, you know, because of this they felt violated, they felt objectified by their classmates, that people that they considered friends, they felt uncomfortable even getting up to go to the bathroom, worried that the boys might be scanning them and editing their decimal points. This rating scale's been around forever. Not only do guys do it to girls, girls do it to guys.
I thought it was kind of ironic because not yesterday, not Saturday, but the Saturday before on the Red Man group, we talked about exactly that. We talked about the rating system and how it came to be and how men are naturally do this kind of in the back of our heads. We rate whether or not that a girl or a woman or whatever is breeding material the moment we see her, right? Is she somebody that I could have sex with? Is she not somebody that I would have sex with? It's some guys like to call it the boner test. Other guys like to just say it's, you know, a rating of 1 through 10. And women seem to think that that's dehumanizing in some way. And the fact of the matter is human beings make comparisons, and we always have and we always will. It's one of the things that keeps us alive, right? If you see a small kind of, you know, rotten apple and you see a giant big juicy red apple, which one do you want? It's very simple. What's going to benefit you the most? Eating the rotten apple, the little apple, or are you going to eat the big apple? You're going to want the big apple, right?
Sure.
Very basic understanding of things. And then it's interesting to me that women are allowed to do this rating on their own. I mean, I of course, as soon as I picked up on this story, I started coming up with all you got to do is just go to Cosmopolitan magazine site, and you can find dozens of articles which are pretty much the counter of this. But what I thought was really ironic about it was that the same girls who feel like they're being rated, like, I don't want to get up. It's suddenly it's like this snowflake, generation snowflake is what it is.
Everybody's offended.
Yeah, everybody's offended to stuff. But these are the same girls who within like 2 or 3 years will be on Tinder, you know, swipe left, swipe right, and just as visceral, a Darwinistic, you know, compassionless way that they think that these boys are doing that. And the other thing is just exactly what you're saying. Is like boys have been doing this for forever. Girls have been doing this for forever. But we only care about it in an age where we have mass communication and we can have this mass offensiveness or this. We all got to be very, very sensitive to this. And the reason I wanted to start with this is because this is reflective of a larger narrative, I think, that's going on right now. And before we came on, I was talking to you about, I think it was Dr. Jordan Peterson who was saying something to the effect that in the future, going forward, it will be illegal or it will be a crime for men to express themselves sexually. Now, or in a sexual manner, right? So everything is offensive. I think you and I were talking about the Motley Crue movie, right? And how just the Generation Snowflake, the girls were saying, oh, it's horrible because they were having, you know, the groupies were actually having sex with rock stars. They couldn't understand why something like that would happen, because they're not from a generation where we weren't conditioned to be offended by any last little thing. And I was going to say, as I remember back in the 80s when there was the PMRC, like the Parents Music Resource Center, they wanted to put like warning labels on heavy metal albums and stuff because it was offensive. Tipper Gore, right? Yeah, right. It was offensive to the Christian right at the time, and everybody got behind the rockers, and they're like, yeah, freedom of speech, yeah, you know, they really wanted to get behind that. And now the people who are the most offended are actually a social justice left that are the most offended right now. It's done a
180. You're right. I remember Dee Snider on Capitol Hill, you know, from Twisted Sister, just slamming her down. But that was the whole big thing. That I tell you what, I saw a you know, speaking of Motley Crue, I saw some sort of a rockumentary back in, I want to say maybe the mid 90s. I had just gotten married, was just, you know, becoming a parent, but I really wasn't aware. I think I was sort of naive about what actually goes on at concerts backstage with these rock stars. And, you know, the guys from Van Halen were just talking about just lining them up.
Oh, yeah.
And their big concern was simply their age. Show me your ID. They didn't care about anything else. And they just had, they had lines of chicks lining up to be with them.
Yeah. And what I find ironic about that is like, these are chicks who are lined up, that voluntarily lined up because that's what they wanted to do. That's what they wanted to get with. And so I'm glad we're talking about this because it sort of segues into what we're going to talk about later on here is, we're in, I think, an era right now where the feminine imperative is setting the tone for us socially.
Right.
One of the reasons, like when we were talking about how we'll get into this, I guess, the Washington Post story about the stats that have just come out. What is it? It's like 28% guys today. Well, I think I've got it right here. Let me throw this up here. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna put this on the screen here so people can check this out.
Are these the percentage that are not having sex?
Here we go. Okay, there we go. Got it up. Okay, so here's the deal. I think what's kind of interesting about this whole thing is the language in which it's presented. Okay, well, look at the sharp increase in men reporting not having sex since what 2008, right? So since 2008, we have seen this sharp increase. So for the last 10 years, we've seen this go on. What has changed since 2008 to 2018?
Okay.
Well, of course, what everybody wants to say is, of course, it depends on what side of the argument you're actually on. Okay, if you're on the side of the argument where you're the tradcon side, then it's of course pornography, right? Well, it's not like we didn't have pornography before all of this, and I understand that people are going to say, well, what about because it's the internet now, right? Well, the internet has free ubiquitous pornography. Okay, maybe you have a point right there, but I will say that that's most likely an adaptation to a social situation that's going on right here.
Plus that porn was available from 98 to 2008 too.
Oh,
you didn't see the drop. Let me ask you a question. When you see a chart like this, okay, I don't know about you, but I immediately go, okay, so who's answering these questions? And because if somebody came up and asked me personal questions about my sex life, I'd be like, F off. I'm not going to give you an answer. So I'm wondering how reliable these are, who they got them from too.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing because a lot of critics want to say, well, this is self-reporting, right? But you have to understand that, and this is psychologically verifiable, right? I mean, you can find stats for this. Is that women tend to underreport their sexual activity, men tend to overreport their sexual activity. But here we see the opposite. Here we see men saying, I haven't got laid, 18 to 30. I haven't got laid for, over a year. Like they're reporting no sex in the past year. Okay. And then what I find really interesting about this is if you look at the tone of the articles that have been written about this thus far, it's young men driving the decline in sex. Like they are the ones going, you know what, we're not like they're taking a proactive role and not having sex, like because they wouldn't be having it if they could be having it. And I once again, that's kind of like this it's blaming the guys, right? It's like, we got to, if it's about sex and it's an unflattering statistic, then it's got to be something that the guys are doing. But we're not seeing that same stat from women. We're not seeing
by the way, when they say sex, okay, just to clarify for everybody, are we talking intercourse or does that include masturbation? Because I can't believe.
Well, no, I don't think that. I would say I think it's actually having heterosexual, conventional
Right.
sex.
The
Okay.
two shall become one. There
Yeah,
you go.
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
So let's just, standard consummation of a relationship, right? So I think what I see going on here is there's two sides to this. There's the traditional conservative explanation for this, and then there's the social justice left explanation to this. And then there, of course, is the Vichy Male feminist apologist explanation of this. Thanks for those super chats. I didn't get to those. I'm going to save super chats till we get a little bit deeper in here. But so when I see like somebody like Ben Shapiro, for example, Ben Shapiro's answer to this, he like when this came out on the Washington Post, everybody scrambled to answer or to give their 2 cents as to why all of this is happening. And I don't think any of the articles I have read thus far trying to explain this statistic, because it's a pretty significant statistic, right, including Tim Pool. I think Tim Pool did a video of this as well, and I think he got really, really close. He's getting there, but he's not quite there just yet. The first thing everybody wants to say is, well, it's because of a few things. The first one is like, we live in the Me Too era. Guys are just like backing up off of it. Guys are quote unquote afraid, right? They're afraid to approach. No, that's neurolinguistic programming. Okay, what that is controlling you and I have talked about this, controlling the language of the narrative, controlling the language. So it's like they're afraid to go up and approach a real live woman. And so what that does is it shames those guys for not being man enough. And that's where Shapiro went with it. It's like, and he's, I don't want to just pick on him because I saw this from a lot of trad cons. It's the standard, predictable response, which is just man up, get married, and you'll get laid. That's always the trad con thing. Is like, well, if you're first of all, they're, and I understand because of the ideological bent, but the reason that they say that is because it follows along with their religious ideas and their conservative ideas, and from their perspective, they're not wrong. They understand that the only acceptable way to have sex is in the confines of marriage, and anything else is a drug addiction, right? That's another thing I hear from trad cons. Like, if you're having sex for pleasure, you're actually just a drug addict. I didn't know if you knew that.
By the way, I got a brother or two, a married brother or two that would love to come on and say, "Bull crap, I bought into that lie." And here I am right now. Right. So and you got Ben Shapiro is like he's the new standard bearer for the trad cons, because he's up and coming. He's extremely religious, Yeah. And if that really was true, okay, you'd see guys running for the altar. The sad reality is that with most guys, not all, most guys, once they get married, the sex rapidly declines. If you're getting more once you're married, you're one of the lucky ones, and you're about as rare as a unicorn. Right.
Well, the other response to this, so that's a TradCon response, and it kind of dovetails really into the social justice side of things, which of course is just, ha ha, you guys aren't getting laid. Ha ha. That's pretty much the intellectual degree that I've heard come from the social justice left is these guys are incels anyways. And so they don't deserve to be in the breeding pool anyways. They shouldn't be, they should know better than to approach anyways. And it looks like our efforts are working. Right. And then there's the other side which says that guys are they want to say that the guys are just simply too afraid to approach because they're worried about getting Me Too'd, which I'm sure there's something to that as well. Right. So now we've got pornography, which keeps guys preoccupied. Then there's the fact that we have Me Too in various ways and forms. Okay. I'm not saying that guys are that's in the back of their mind so much, because if a guy sees a hot girl and he wants to go after it, he's going to go after it. That's not going to be the first thing in the back of his head, but it might be now when we go and you look at the ambiguities of the sexual marketplace and sexual zoning, which I want to get into a little bit later here. In sexual zonings, you get the Aziz Ansari stories, right? Where the couple of them get together. The guy has a kind of some sort of low-level fame. The chick gives him a blowjob, and then he wants to have sex, and she says she doesn't want to have sex. She just wanted to give him a blowjob, right? And so you have this kind of ambiguousness. Now, did he rape her or did he not rape her? If it wasn't enthusiastic consent, then then if it was just kind of gray area sex, like I keep seeing the Fem-Stream Media want to paint things as, then was that rape? Was that not rape? It's not even so much a fear of the actually being Me Too'd as it is the fear of ambiguity and how that ambiguousness can be used for the politics of personal destruction, which is what we saw going on with like the Kavanaugh hearing. And now we're going to see it. You're going to see it going, Joe. Smiling Joe, man. Your turn, Joe. And it's like, and I can't imagine he didn't know that this was coming. I can't imagine this is some kind of shock to him. But then, you know, you got Joe Biden, and remember when Mike Pence decided to make it public that he doesn't sit in the company of women who aren't his wife, or he doesn't go have dinner or lunch or whatever.
Unless his wife's with him.
Unless his wife is with him, or there's like witnesses, right? That's the Mike Pence rule, right? It's like they say powerful men hide behind closed or open doors. Yeah, you're damn right they do, because of this ambiguousness, because of this Me Too stuff that's going on.
Mike Pence doesn't look so silly anymore. You know?
No, yeah, but just really quickly, the reason that they shamed Mike Pence for that is what did they say? Oh, he's not secure in his masculinity. Right? So it's this, if he doesn't do what we want him to, we're going to hit him on his conventional masculinity. We're going to say you're insecure because you won't do that. Why? What are you worried about? Kind of thing. Well, what he's worried about is ambiguous accusations like that.
Real quick, the one of the things I see, and it's not the whole answer, but it's a big part of the picture with guys under 30. And I know this specifically from talking to my son, Michael, who's 21. He's in the Marine Corps, just got back from 7 months in Syria. Right. But he's telling me all about his buddies. Mike never got really wrapped around the cell phone. He checks it, but he's not one of these guys that's constantly on it. And he never let that be his only way of communicating. There's so many younger guys, you know, even friends of his, they have no idea how to even approach a woman, because the only way they've ever communicated with a woman has been on their cell phone, in a text message, you know, through some type of social media. I got a guy that I work with. His son is a senior in high school, and he's got a girl that he's been steady with. It's been his girlfriend for 2 years. They have never met outside of school. They've never gone anywhere. They've never gone on a date. They've never done anything like that, but they consider themselves boyfriend, girlfriend. Right. Their entire relationship exists on the phone. And because you don't have those skills, because you've never tried to approach anybody, you don't know how to deal with it. And that's why, you know, like getting back to my son, the first girl that bites, they fall in love with and get hooked up with, and she's knocked up, and then they're stuck for the next 18 years. Yep, exactly. And I have just been made aware of a very similar situation. I'm not going to mention names, but somebody that is someone in the let's just say, I don't want to name names here, but there's a very similar situation right now. And it kind of struck me as odd too, because it's like, you've got these two people who have met each other online. Right. They've been quote unquote dating online, for like virtually online, for six months, 8 months or something like that. And they're just going to meet each other coming up this week, right? In person. I'm like, and I'm the asshole for saying, you have no relationship. There is no relationship. I've written at least 3 different articles on long distance relationships. And the first one, which really pissed people off back in the day, was letting go of invisible friends. And what that is when you have a long distance relationship, you have an invisible friend. You have a ghost of whoever they are right behind you. So you can't go out with your friends. You can't do anything that when this is from the guy's perspective, you can't go out and do the things that you would necessarily want to do. You can't put yourself into situations where you might actually meet some other girl. You have this limiting sense, because you desperately want to have that intimate connection, that one-itis. You know, I would almost say that it is almost easier for guys to get one-itis in this day than it ever has been before, because there's what I call buffers. And that I'm glad we got to this a little bit here, because buffers is definitely a red pill 101 topic, and it is a big theme in my first book. Okay, what buffers are is they are anything that buffer the impact of rejection, or a buffer like marginalize the impact of a rejection to a guy. And what that means is, like, guys will say, "Hey man, I got my text game really down tight," right? Well, to me, that doesn't mean anything, because you're not interrelating with that person. Right? All that is just characters on a screen.
because you don't get like, I'm talking to you right now. You can see my face. If I was like this, you would know that I was pissed off, right?
Absolutely.
Or if I was, there's sub communications that go on,
right.
and is exactly what you're talking about. Is like they don't understand that's one of the reasons I think guys don't get it when it comes to interrelate. That's one of the reasons there's a red pill, really. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I have to help guys unplug from all of this stuff, because they certainly never had a father to teach them how to you know, how to deal with women. Never had anybody explain that to them. And in fact, if you have to have it explained to you, then you're insecure in your masculinity, right? Then let's just fall back on that same stupid shame once again. But those buffers, and the biggest buffer, of course, is digital/social media. So, so texting, anything where you're not seeing that person, anything where all you're doing is getting that information transfer rather than intonations, rather than live face-to-face stuff. And then what happens is these guys don't know how to deal with a woman.
Give you a perfect example. Perfect example in the real world. When you're applying for jobs, people, you know, send, like in my business, radio business, you know, people will send like an email, you know, with an MP3 or whatever attached to the program director. And then they don't hear back from the program director. Okay, well, because it's very easy to just delete that email. You know, if you have to, in this day and age, you need to physically get in front of that other person to present yourself. And it's the same way in the dating world. You know, because it's going to be a lot tougher to shut you down. Okay, face to face. I mean, with you know, people are breaking up on the phone. It's not even breaking up anymore. They're like ghosting. I just don't even call you anymore. It's like you just boom, you're gone. And there's no skill set. And I think it puts guys at a tremendous disadvantage and gives women a whole new set of tools. Because, you know, women used to, I don't want to tell them that I want to break up, because, you know, they'd be feeling the guilt.
Women use buffers just
as much as guys. You're gone. I just blocked you. It's over. It's done.
Yeah, you delete that person. Literally, you're deleting that person, right?
Yeah, you're dead to me.
Well, and how does that? I get into these conversations with guys who want to say, well, we're evolving really, really fast right now. I'm like, no, we're not. We're still the same, you know, biologically, psychologically, innately, we're still the same hunter-gatherers that we were back in the day, right? Way back in the day. Only now we're trying to figure out how to interact with each other in a global sexual marketplace, which is another thing we were talking about the other day.
Right.
You're trying to interrelate with them, but now you're doing it while you're trying to multitask, and now you're doing it while you're still trying to figure out the latest technology, which keeps advancing faster and faster and faster. And so and this is not just in the sexual marketplace, this is just human dynamics as it is anyways. We have had such leaps and bounds from, I mean, if you look at the beginning of the 1900s, by the 1960s, within a 65-year space, we were on the moon. Yep. Okay. And then within, from like say the 80s up to where we are right now, we have had global technology that it just advances us. And how does that change us in different ways? It changes us socially. How does it change us when it comes to the sexual marketplace? And we're seeing the evidence of that right here in these stats. Okay. When the one thing that all these guys who are trying to say, well, it's just about pornography, or it's just about one thing, and the MGTOWs are going to say the same thing too. They're going to say, well, it's because of the sexual marketplace, and it's because we live in a gynocentric, you know, social order right now. Which, of course, they are right about that, but I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's the whole. You have to look at the whole. Yeah, you have to look at the whole friggin' tomato. Okay, it's So like I was going to say is that what we're seeing here is what I've been beating this drum for a very long time, which is we're seeing the rise of a hypergamous social order. And this is where we go with it. I wrote a post about 6 weeks ago called The New Polyandry. And I was speculating that we are moving into an era where we will find ourselves in a new form of polygamy, but it will be polyandry, because we're starting to incrementally, and actually maybe in leaps and bounds, cut ourselves away from this monogamous way of dealing with one another, and we're going to start dealing with each other in a polygamous or polyandrous way, because we decided, however we decided it, that we are going to make hypergamy the defining factor of our of Western intersexual relationships, and that everything should defer to the feminine. I mean, you can look just look at my Twitter feed anytime you want. You're going to see I think I posted this thing of this, I guess it was an art project in Spain, and it's like all these naked people, and all it is just these men like curled up in a ball and laying on the ground, and it's just women standing on top of them naked, right? And it's like, people say, well, it's just an art project. No, it's not just an art project. That is a reflection of what's going on right now. That wouldn't be an art project in any other era. Okay.
Let me ask you a question on this, because I think we're on the same page mindset wise. The idea that a guy, in fact, I sent you a song, Rupert Holmes, the guy that did the Pina Colada song, called Him. It should be like our theme music for guys that are cucked. But the mindset that you're going to share a woman or, you know, a girl with some other guy or guys, to me, that's so foreign. I can't even wrap my arms around it. But there's so many guys out there that don't see any problem with that.
I'm actually in the middle of a post right now on polyandry, or polygamy. You know, the poly lifestyle, and I think this is also a sort of a progression that really benefits women more than it does for men. Like in the back if we wind things back to when we start in there's pre-agriculture and there's agriculture. And after agriculture came monogamous relationships, one man, one woman, because it benefited more beta guys than it did alpha men, right? Because it meant that, and this is why we get like, we get the romantic kind of cliches of there's someone for everyone, right? Well, that's not how it used to be. Okay. If you were a badass, you could have 4 or 5 chicks. You look in the Old Testament, you can look at like Abraham. Abraham had 2 wives, and maybe more than that, and his concubine, or his maid. They didn't call them concubines. His maid servants, right?
Side chick.
His side chicks who lived with him in his prime, and nobody thought any different of that, because that's just how things were back then. Well, then things changed a little bit more into monogamy, and guys, monogamy benefits men more than it does women, because especially when it comes to socially enforced monogamy, because it benefits women in a sense that, or what benefits women, of course, because it means that they're going to be taken care of, or used to be, because they had to depend on men for resources. They had to depend on men for long-term security. And that was the selling point of monogamy. Well, all that stuff's gone now. So what is the next progression to that? And what I'm thinking is that we're moving into polyandry.
Benefits men more than women.
It benefits beta men more than women.
Okay, because then there's one for everybody at least.
Yeah,
right?
because when I got into that, when I got into the discussion of the new polyandry, I was looking at an article in The Economist that tracks the correlation between polygamy and war. And if you look at like the countries where there's more polygamy, like particularly in Islamic countries, where a man can have I believe it's up to 4 wives, that means that 3 other dudes ain't getting a wife.
So, right? So the Mormons were onto something then, huh?
Yeah, well, maybe so. I don't think that's I don't know. You'd have to ask Tanner Guzzi, but I think that I don't think that that's a thing anymore. Polygamy in
no, not with mainstream Mormons. No.
Not anymore. But you know, but the thing is that monogamy serves a greater whole, right? Because if left to our own devices, and if women are dependent on men for their long-term security, then a man can have 4 or 5 wives, and those women are benefiting as long as that guy is alpha enough to support 4 or 5 wives and have a big tribe. It's the tribes of Abraham, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is that if you're an affluent enough guy to have that, then it benefits those women, because the culture is still, you're married to these chicks and you still have to take care of them. It's not like you're just having, you know, the orgies every night. It's because you're having all of these wives because you want to spread your seed, and that is the male biological imperative, which is to spread our seeds, right? So what happens is when you remove that that polygamy gave way to monogamy, one-on-one, right? And so what that does is that broadens the field a little bit more. So you didn't have to be a super alpha guy to get a wife. You were assured that you were going to get one wife. And so we built up this big romantic narrative around the fact that, well, she's my soulmate, right? Or that's why guys get one-itis, right? It's like she's the one who's destined for, it's my destiny. You know, those kind of old courtly love, romantic love cliches all came around right when we started marrying one man with one woman, and that was the way it was supposed to be. And if you had more, polygamy was reserved for emperors and kings, pretty much, and everybody else got one. And what's interesting is there's always been ways that men and women have gotten around that. They've had soft harems, or they had ways to still spread their seed, but they were supposed to, socially, they were supposed to stick with one because it was beneficial to a greater whole.
Right.
All of that's gone now because we've removed the necessity of women being dependent on men for their long-term security. Now they still are, because they're still dependent on men's resources indirectly or directly.
Right.
And they're still dependent on men incorporating them into male spaces, which is a male work, like into the workspace or into our workforces. So they're still depending on men, but we're saying, okay, here's your independence. Go ahead and have it. But what that's doing is it's creating what I call the new polyandry. And the new polyandry is that because that long-term security is already met for women, because they don't have to, they can make their own. There's all kinds of songs about that, right? I mean, Beyonce will say, "I make my own damn money." You know, she walks like the boss. She talks.
So that's a perfect segue into the tweet you put out earlier today. Let me just share that with people who haven't seen it. It's who's the lady? Emilia Clarke, I think. Okay, so you said, once again, women only see men as breeding stock or draft animals. Here's the quote from her. She says, "Yes, I want babies. I don't know about marriage, but I do want to find a human," so apparently dogs are safe, "that you'd want to create a family with." But it's like, okay, she's basically, all I want is your seed. See you.
Right.
Or maybe the seed, and you've got financial responsibility for the next 18 years. But other than that, I don't want to see you. Get out of here.
Right. And I think what's ironic about that is I'm getting all kinds of retweets from feminists and social justice warriors seeming to think that, oh, he's crying about something. And just because I'm basically, I'm doing is pointing out objectively what anybody else can see. And you know what? Half of them are making my point for me. Like, they're like, yeah, that's the way it should be, Okay, well, I guess we can move on now. But like that's
a choice of terminology there, though, really peculiar. But I do want to find a human.
A human, yeah, because
that's weird. Because she shouldn't say man. Can't say man, right?
Well, it's because the feminine imperative right now, or women who are part of the village, will never that we want to remove the man. We want to remove the letters MAN from the English language, and so it's not boys will be boys anymore. It's boys will be good humans now, or it's men are not men; they're allies now. And so it's in a sense meant to designate male human beings as being either draft animals or breeding stock. And are they useful? And if they outlive their usefulness, like Joe Biden, you're out of here. Let's get him out. Once you outlive your usefulness, you are an obstacle to the village.
Doesn't it make you sick? I mean, seriously, in your stomach, as to how pussified, that's the word I use, pussified, men have become in this country. It's like, 20 years ago, I mean, everybody would have gone, that's just, you're such a wuss, but now it's the norm. It's the norm.
Right. Well, and I'll say that it has been ongoing, I think, since the late 60s. It has been progressively leading up to where we are generationally since the late 60s. Because hell, man, when I was in the 80s, I was listening to a lot of the same arguments, and of course it was in the vernacular of the time, but it's the same discussions we're having today, because we want men to be in touch with their feminine side, and we want men to, we want to teach men to cry, and we want to teach men we basically want to raise our boys like they're defective girls. And we've been doing that for at least the last 4 or 5 generations. So what do you expect? Now we have 28% of guys saying that they haven't had sex in the last year. All right. Well, is that evidence of pornography? Is that evidence of what? And I will say it is evidence of the direction we have been going with respect to intersexual dynamics, at least since 2008, because that's when they started keeping this kind of. Well, that's when we saw the increase, anyways, right?
Well, by the way, when it comes to married guys, when I hear that, okay, for a married guy who tells you I haven't had sex in the last year, unless he's older, okay, and unless there's health issues with either him or his wife, if somebody's got cancer or something like that, you haven't been married you haven't had sex for a whole year. Why are you still married? So I mean, that's
not
a serious
marriage
question
anymore. You and I have talked about this on your show. We talked about
you get married to have sex, to have kids.
Sex is the glue that keeps the relationship together. Yeah. Well,
I mean, eventually, if you live long enough, you're going to get to a point where that's no longer part of the game. Okay. But if you're otherwise a healthy, normal male, anywhere from, I don't know, 25 to 65, that should still be part of the mix. And if it's not, you got to ask yourself why.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked about this already on your show when we were talking about how sex is the glue that keeps a relationship together.
Whenever you got all offended.
Yeah. Without sex, you don't have a marriage.
So what you get from the women is, so that's all I'm good for. Sex.
Yeah, well, of course, no, but that is the glue that holds the relationship together, right? And of course, they say that because what happens is the
keystone that holds everything together.
Women know that their only true agency over men is their sexuality, and once that starts to decline, once you take that away, they worry about, and they know this is what they don't like me talking about it. They know it just as well as anybody else. Is they. Once you remove that, that's when the guy starts thinking, well, maybe I should get the hell out of here. Or maybe I should cheat on her. Or maybe I should jerk off to porn, right? How am I going to solve my sexual needs? How am I going to solve my reproductive imperative here? Well, it's not happening with her. So what am I going to do? And then, when guys get married, that's part of a woman expressing her genuine desire for him. It's part of her expressing her genuine appreciation for him. And when you pull that away, or when you minimize that, I would argue that it's almost worse for a woman to go, okay, do it. Is it over yet? With starfish sex, right? That's almost worse. That's almost worse because it's pandering to that. It's pandering to that guy who what it's saying is, we both know that sex is important, but I don't like you well enough to actually be enthusiastic about it. So do your duty, and let's go. I got laundry to fold.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you want to come up with a way to end a relationship really quick, pull that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's there's a lot of guys out there that they'll take that. I got to tell you, even, especially since reading all 3 of the books so far, and the 4th one yet to come here, even stuff that people told me in the past. Hey, we got some friends, they got divorced because the husband had a porn problem. Well, I have to take a step back. Okay. And I'm not taking sides here. So you got divorced because he was looking at pictures. And repeat it back to them, because it was more than that. Well, what else was it? Why was he looking at the pictures? And why was he jerking off? I mean, there must have been a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, well, no, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, well, you and I, on your show, we talked about sexless marriages. A sexless marriage is, technically, a sexless marriage is a couple having sex once a month. Or was it 10 under?
I thought it was less than 10 times a year. 10 or less times a year is a sexless marriage, which I think, even 20 times a year, I'd be a little upset. Yeah, something's going on.
But yeah. And so when we talk about a sexless marriage, why, like what you're saying is, why would a guy go and jerk off? Why would he have a porn addiction? What drove the guy to, if the guy was getting regular sex, would he be doing that? I mean, you can and maybe the answer is yes. Maybe he still would. Maybe he does have a problem. Maybe his wife's not as attractive as he would like her to be, and he's developed a taste for whatever fetish of porn he sees. But the question's never asked. The question is never, what am I doing why is he seeking this out? Why is this he's a bad person? Well, and that goes back to what Ben Shapiro was talking about. It's like, well, I don't want to pick on just Ben, but like on the conservative side of things, is like, if we just got rid of porn, then guys would be more into women, right? It corrupts their ideas of when it comes to sex. And it's like, that's a symptom of a bigger problem. That's not. Guys are programmed visually.
We're supposed to be turned on by that kind
of stuff.
We are. I had before I forget here, and I'll have to dig this up, but I'll get a copy of this for you. I had a couple on, husband and wife couple. The wife was a columnist for some newspaper magazine, but they did an experiment. They had sex every day for a full year. Did you ever, know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. And I remember the critics just jumped all over her going, how dare you feel, or how dare he feel that way?
Yeah, both of them, and it was from both of their perspectives. I had the husband and the wife on the program, but it was pretty interesting because when women hear us talking about sex, the importance of sex, they think volume, that you want sex every day, regardless. And you got into the discussion a couple episodes ago. It's not even necessarily volume; it's quality.
Yeah, quality, intensity. There's frequency and intensity, and I would say, according to these stats, you know, guys 18 to 30 aren't getting frequency or intensity right now. So, you know, what's the draw? What draws the line right there?
It's like Tony Stark from Iron Man. You know, which would you rather have, the intensity or the frequency? Is it too much to ask for both?
I think that to answer the question of this is why aren't they getting laid is because we're seeing hypergamy in action right now. People will say, well, all Roller talks about is hypergamy. Well, that's because it affects so many different areas here. What all these critics don't want to talk about is that this is evidence of a feminine primary social order. This is what happens. This is the new polyandry. You know, women are having plenty of sex. They don't report it in anywhere near the numbers that these guys are talking about, right? So what I find interesting is, and this is Tim Pool who said this, and this is why I said he's just a little bit off, because Tim Pool presumed that these girls between the ages of 18 and 30 years old, if they're still having sex, but these other guys who are in the same age cohort, they're not having sex. So what does that mean? Well, it must mean that these women are having sex with older guys that are out of the cohort. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It means they're having sex with the top 20% of the same damn cohort. You just don't want to see that. You just don't want to admit that women actually want to get with the top 20%. It is evidence of hypergamy right then and there. And they'll find any damn reason why it's not. Anything, pornography, shame, they're getting with older guys, anything except for the most obvious damn reason of the whole thing.
So I was watching this seminar on pornography, guys addicted to pornography. And, you know, there's a stigma associated with men and masturbation that's not necessarily attached with women. You've talked about this before. With men, bad. With women, hot kind of stuff. But one of the guys that was talking about how, you know, this is like the go-to cop out for guys, you know, the masturbation, and that women don't do that like guys do. Anyway, there was somebody in the audience that owned one of these adult novelty stores. He stood up and he says, "Who do you think I'm selling all these vibrators to?"
Yeah.
I mean, this idea that women, you know, even single women, single moms, that they're, you know, they don't need it like we need it is nonsense. Granted, because it's cyclical, like we've talked about in the past. But he goes, who do you think I'm selling all these things to?
Yeah. And you know why? Because female masturbation is socially acceptable. Male masturbation is not. It's perversion. It's
go to hell.
Distortion.
Go to hell. Teenage boys, Catholic Church. You couldn't get a priest today to tell me that Adolf Hitler's in hell. Okay. Yeah. But despite the fact that he killed 6 million Jews, you know, he might have made it, you know, he might have had a change of heart at the end just before he killed himself in his Eva Braun, which is bullshit. But they'll tell you, because any sex outside of marriage, okay, is considered a sin. So if you got teenage boy whacking off, well, that's sinful. You're going to hell. Hitler gets a pass, but I'm going to hell. I mean, that's the stigma that it's just beat into you. No pun intended.
Yeah. Well, and why is that? And a lot of guys, and this is completely off topic here, but a lot of guys think that I am anti-porn because I wrote this post called The Pheromonal Beta. And all I was doing was sort of digging into why it is that it is shameful for men to masturbate, but it's a niche of porn for women to masturbate, and guys will pay money to see a woman masturbate. Right? Women will not. Generally, women will not pay men to watch them whack off. Okay, men. Here's the money, man. You know, they're happy to do that. But no, I think it's the reason I wrote that is because I think that there's some evolutionary reasons for why we shame men for that. We think that men should always be in control of their sex. Right? They should always have, men and women are different, right? Men want to spread the seed. Men want to, our sexual biological imperative is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. But we have to maintain control over that because our sexual natures is always on. Okay. When we see a woman who is in a half naked woman and she's attractive and she's hot, we get aroused by something like that. And it triggers a part of our brain. We've talked about this, triggers a part of our brain that is associated with tool use. Why? Because we're trying to figure out how to solve the reproductive problem. It's a problem. I need a tool. Right. Oh, here it is. You know, that's how it works. You know, I want to get back real quick to the idea that women are having multiple guys now, whereas opposed to polygamy with a man with multiple wives. Why is it that every time you see an article, and they're usually coming out of the UK with this kind of stuff,
the woman she's just a dog. I've never, I mean, it'd be one thing if it was like, you know, top of the notch 10+ model and she had multiple guys. It's never that way. It's somebody that if you saw them on the street, it'd be like, I can't even believe a guy wants to have sex with you. Well, seriously. And they've got multiple guys.
I think that, and maybe I'm wrong about this because I don't know enough about the designations or the definitions of all this, but like when I hear somebody tell me about their poly relationship or their open relationship, right? I maybe there's some kind of difference between a quote unquote poly relationship and an open relationship. When I see guys who want to promote that as a new great lifestyle, 9 times out of 10, they're cucking themselves. They want to cuck themselves. They're openly cucking themselves because I think that what they believe is that they can sort of have this monogamous, comfortable relationship with a woman and then still be able to go out and have sex with women that they feel like it whenever they feel like it. The problem is that in this era, in the age of feminine primary social and the age of gynocracy or the gynocentrism, okay, whatever you want to call it, it serves women far more than it does guys. Why? Because women can go out and facilitate that so much easier than men can. A woman wants to go, you'll hear guys say this all the time, if a woman wants to go down to the bar and spread her legs for whoever, she could probably do that if she's semi-attractive, right? So for women, to facilitate a poly relationship is way easier than it is for men, right? Because men, and then what goes along with that? You have to remember that for a man to go out there and try to facilitate that, he's got to go to special places to make that happen, and then he's also got to play the game really good, or he's got to be really good looking. You know, polyandry or polygamy is really really the realm of alpha men, because they're the only ones who can really pull it off with any satisfaction, I should say. But I think a lot of beta guys are sold on the idea that they can do that, or that they're in some way being more progressive because they're letting their woman go, and you know, he's making this sacrifice, or he's so secure in his masculinity that I'll let his wife, you know, have her bull on a Saturday night, right? And that makes him bigger or more secure because he's doing that. And we should really, I really want to save this discussion for a full, like we need to talk about paternity, because the same guys who are advocating for polygamy or poly relationships are the same guys who should know better. They should know better because they understand that there is such a thing as mate guarding, that there is such a thing as men's existential fear of raising a child that's not their own. Okay, there's the paternity, the evolved paternity aspects of this. There's the revulsion aspects of this. So when it comes to polygamy, I honestly think that we're sort of leaning more towards polyandry and not polygamy so much, because what it is and I've said this as well, is that women will share an alpha. They'll gladly share an alpha rather than be saddled to a faithful, dutiful beta. And they can facilitate that now like they have never been able to before. And these stats are evidence of that. Okay, women don't need men for their resources anymore. They don't need men for their, I mean, they don't need men personally. They still need men when it comes directly or indirectly to get those resources. But in their lives, they don't need a husband, let's say. And that was a good example of that one tweet, right? I want to have babies, but I don't want a husband, or I don't necessarily need a husband. Well, you know what? In 2019, it has never been easier for a woman to go down to a sperm bank, freeze her eggs, do whatever the hell that she wants to do so that she can facilitate that. And we'll give her special compensations or dispensations to do exactly that. Where and this is a Royce maxim, and he said that the goal of feminism is the maximal unrestriction of women, unrestricting hypergamy, unfettering hypergamy, and the maximal restriction of men's sexual imperative and men's sexuality. They want to basically, like I said, they want men who are breeding stock, and they want men who are just useful, that are draft animals, right?
So, go ahead.
Oh, wait, you know, we got one quick
okay, do that.
super chat here. It says, I heard a 14-year-old, sorry, this is Chase Robadou. I think that's French. I heard a 14-year-old boy say he preferred porn over girls because, in his words, Porn couldn't hurt me like a real girl could. Well, wow, that's actually part of what we're talking about. Yeah, because it's easier. That's why I think that porn is not the actual problem, but it is a symptom of the problem, right? They don't want to deal with women, like we were talking about before. When men want to have buffers, pornography, I would say, is definitely a buffer. It's a buffer against rejection, which is exactly what this kid is talking about here. Is he would rather jerk off to porn and stay at home in his room and play World of Warcraft and live a life of escapism, because it's simply easier to do that. Why? What is the incentive? I would ask Ben Shapiro, what's the incentive for these men to go and do that? Why? It's 100% responsibility and 0% authority. And now you're seeing the results of that. Now, what we're going to say is, well, they're not manning up, or they're prolonging their adolescence. Like, well, no, they're not. They're celibate. They're either, I don't believe in such a thing as involuntary celibate, but I would say that they're voluntarily celibate. And that kid was, that in the super chat, definitely was voluntarily celibate. If you've got $100, you can come to Reno and I'll get you laid. Okay. It's seriously. I was joking about this. I said, because I was saying there's no such thing.
Not a 14-year-old though. You don't put that.
Yeah, no, not a 14-year-old, but like if you're over 18, you come here and I will teach you. Give me $500 and I will teach you brothel game. And I'll take you to the brothel. I'll teach you a few things in the first like half hour. You give me your $500 and I 100% guarantee you'll get laid.
Yeah. I remember back in the 90s, seeing a couple movies, Total Recall, the first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, might even been in the 80s with that one. And then there was a Sylvester Stallone movie where he was a cop in the future. But both of these movies had scenes where people didn't have sex anymore. It was virtual sex. Yep. Guys watching everything on the screen. You don't need the interaction. In fact, the one movie, I can't think of the name right now, where Stallone was like a cop in the future. He wanted to have sex with one of the female characters, but he wanted to have it the right way, normal. She's there, like actually touching kind of stuff, because everything was virtual. We're there at that point.
Oh yeah, we're already there right now. In a way. I mean, where I was talking about sex robots, and I don't want to get into that.
Don't even get into the doll stuff.
I'm not going to get into the doll stuff, because I know where that ends up. But we're there. You're right. We're there where the virtual experience and the virtual escape becomes preferable to the reality. And that's why 28% of these guys, it's gone up 28, gosh, almost 30%. It's gone up in 10 years of guys who are reporting that they haven't gotten laid.
So the guys aren't getting laid, but the women are. So who are the women having sex with?
Yeah.
And I mean, we're at a point now, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, where you take your average 30-year-old guy, 30-year-old woman. The woman has had more sex partners than the guy has. Yep. It's backwards from what it should be or used to be.
Yep. And then guys think that's a selling point for them. They think, well, I haven't had that much sex. It must be a selling point for me, right? When
it's the woman and she's had, we talked about this, where they've had too many, it's almost guaranteeing you're going to get divorced, because they've injured themselves. They've done irreparable damage where they're not able to connect long-term with the guy. Right.
Well, okay. So we have two questions there. The first one is where, like Tim Pool was saying, that, it must be that they're having sex out of their age cohort. No, they're having sex in their cohort. They're just having it with the top 20% of guys who aren't the guys that are reporting that they didn't get laid over the last 10 years. Right. So they're still doing it. What this is it's evidence of the Pareto Principle. Okay, 80% of guys go home and whack off, and the 20% of guys are the ones that women want to get with. Does that mean that the women are actually getting with that top 20%? No, it doesn't. But it means they want them. Okay, it means that when you look at the statistics for, I think it was OkCupid. Damn, I wish I had Carl from Black Label Logic here to tell me that, because he's the statistician of all.
He knows it all.
But we had this one graph, and I didn't have it set for today, but there's this one graph from, I think it was OkCupid, or it might have been, it was in the book Dataclysm, and it showed you the massive disadvantage that a guy is at on Tinder right now. Why? Because it's all basic, visceral, hardcore, Darwinistic selection process. Is this guy cute? Is this guy not cute? That's what happened. That's how that works. But when it comes to the dating profiles, men are also at a massive disadvantage. And oddly enough, it follows exactly the Pareto Principle that the red pill has been stating for decades now. Okay. What happens is, it was women rate 80% of men. It might be even above that now, but 80% of men as unattractive, not as average, as unattractive. Right. So then there's the top 20% that maybe they're average, and maybe the top 10% of that 20 is desirable. Like they want to get with that guy. That guy's the hot dude that with the six pack and the perfectly symmetrical face, and he looks like the hot guy from the fireman calendar. He looks exactly like the guy that all of those high school girls will rate later on as being attractive once they get out of high school. And so
minus the pimples.
But here, I think one of the aspects that nobody's touching on this is that we want to blame it on men. We want even the stats in there on the Washington Post article said young men are driving this. No, they're not driving this. They're reacting to it. This is a result of something that's happening in the sexual marketplace. What is that? It's not that they're driving it. Guys, if guys wanted to have pornography would not be a multi-bazillion-dollar juggernaut if men were just like, I don't feel like having sex today. If that was their default, guys wouldn't rely on pornography to be an escape for them. So it's not men who are driving it. So who is driving it? Well, the people that we don't want to say are driving it, which is women. And women are driving this because they are not because of pornography, but because of social media. They believe that they are entitled to that top 20%, that if they hold out long enough, they don't want to settle for that guy. And why would they? Why should they? They can already make their own money. They don't have to worry about men personally for their long-term security. So why would they? Why not hold out for the hot fireman in the fireman calendar? Why not do that? And so they wait longer and longer. And lo and behold, the stats show that the age for initial marriage is 27, 28 years old. Women are freezing their eggs because they can't get, they can't get the alpha to commit to them. And so there's only so many of those guys to go around. And so what that does is it sort of reinforces what I said about the new polyandry, is that women will be glad to share that top ranking, top tier alpha because they got no other reason not to. There's no incentive for them to settle down, not with a suboptimal guy, and then on top of everything else, we have the Me Too. We live in the Me Too era. Guys are addicted to their buffers, to their instant messaging. They're addicted to relating behind that third wall, which is their digital consciousness. There's so many different factors here, but the base factor is that women are hypergamous and they only want that top 20%. And we're exacerbating this because of social media. And we're exacerbating guys won't approach it. That we made it a hate crime for men to approach women.
Let me jump in on the social media because you bring this up a lot, but it's a really important part of this puzzle. Okay. Women have an overinflated sense of self-worth because of social media, whether it's Instagram in particular. Women put these pictures up of themselves, and you talked, who was the guy you had on the 55-year-old guy that's just
Marco Russo.
And how the pictures, are grossly deceptive. And you see the reactions to it. It's almost always women telling them how hot they look, how great they look, And then even I think it was in your first book when you were talking about dating profiles, like even places like Match.com.
Yeah,
you got a 40-year-old woman, maybe divorced twice, 3 or 4 kids. She is putting out what I call like a list of hostage demands. If you want a piece of this, which is probably about 50 pounds overweight to begin with, and with all the bag, you have to do this, and this for her. And it's like they're delusional. I mean, literally delusional, because you're not all that.
Women want insurances that they will be the primary sexual selectors from here on out, from no matter whether they're 18 or they're 80. They want that insurance that whatever it is that they do, they are the ones who are dictating who they're going to be with and who they're not going to be with. And people say, "Oh, isn't that a good idea?" Well, yeah, in a way it is. But what happens is it's great right up until the fact where I'm expected as a man to be attracted to a land whale. right? Well, and that's what they do. That's why we talk about
She's big bone, roller. She's big bone. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's why that's why we have this body positivity stuff, right? Well, why is that? Well, women want to be able to be sexual selectors, even if they are morbidly obese.
I had a guy in my program,
and they're completely hubristically, enraptured by that whole thing. So anyway,
I had a guy in my program, Danny Cahill. He lives in our area, Broken Arrow. He was on Biggest Loser. He won season 8. At his peak, he was up around 500 pounds. But when we went on the show, he was 435, got down to 191. We talked about the difference, though, in how society views overweight women as opposed to overweight men. Women, we're supposed to, Tess Holliday, she's supposed to be hot now, despite the fact that she's 300 pounds plus. She's got a beautiful face. She's pretty inside. Nobody ever says that about the guys. No. Danny talked about the stigma that was, I'm fat, I'm a slob, I'm lazy, I can't control myself. But with women, it's a whole different standard, but they're both obese.
Women have a higher standard, a higher and more stringent standard of ideal masculine beauty than men ever will. And that's one of that really flies in the face of a lot of what women want to say. Is like, well, they just want these cute little blonde big tits, and they want something that's like that. That's what they say about pornography, right? I can't compete with that. Compete with what? Do you know how many niches of pornography there are? There's a great book, and it's called A Billion Wicked Thoughts, and it's by I think Ogvis and Ogvi or something like that. There's these Indian sex researchers. It came out, I think, right around 2006 or 2007. There might be an update to it now, but it was all these statistics that pretty much debunk a lot of the idea that men only seek out one particular kind of woman. Because if you go and you look at like the stats that, like, say someone like Pornhub puts out, there's if you want to see a woman with pink hair, if you want to see a woman who is skinny, you want to see a girl who's fat, you want to see a girl who is brunette, blonde, whatever, you name the niche of porn, and there's a niche of porn for whatever it is that a guy has a quote unquote fetish or a preference for. Women's preferences doesn't change. There's never been a Rubenesque period where fat men were attractive to women. It's never been that way.
Look at the tits on him. Come on. Tell me you don't like that, right?
Oh, would you like me to prove that? Okay, here we go. There are plenty of dating sites for chubby chasers, for guys who want to get with fat chicks, or maybe they're a little overweight themselves, and you go, you know what? I have an easier time getting with a fat girl, and they're right. But there are ways that they facilitate those kinds of things. But you will never see a site dedicated to women who are fitness contest competitors who are looking for fat guys.
Yeah.
You're never going to find that. You'll find them looking for rich guys, like there's executive introductions or something like that. But you will never find a one that, or sugar daddies, but you will never find an agency that specializes in hooking up good, in shape women with fat guys. Why? Because their standard of beauty is more strict, more static, more stringent. It's the jawline, it's the muscular definition, it's that athletic look, it's athleticism, it's conventional masculinity, it is physical prowess, anything that implies physical prowess, and it doesn't change throughout history. It doesn't change. But now we want to say, well, men are the ones with the strict policy. No. It completely the opposite. It's women have a much more strict. I got another one here. Some guy, you know what, dude? I'm sorry, Phil. I did not see your earlier question. You said answer my question earlier about I believe it's chasing chads. Is that what you're saying?
Women,
I think I kind of did, didn't I? I mean, I hate using the terms chads because it's like this is what incels want to say, because it's this absolutism. Okay, that's what Elliot Rogers said. Oh, there's chads and Stacys, right? Well, there was I think who was it in that one in that one article I sent you about from was it International Family something or other? Or
that's
like that. It's in
the Good Man Project.
Yeah, it's like the Good Man. These are the female or the feminist apologists, and the feminist apologists don't want you to go and get in. They don't want you to pull an Alec Manassian, so they don't want you to think that it's all about Chads and Stacys or anything like that. I think I already answered that, Phil. Quite honestly, I think did I not say that women are looking for that top 20%. If that's Chad to you, okay, fine. But what that to me is it's the top 20% of the guys who women want to breed with. That's the breeding stock, not the draft animal. That's the breeding stock. And I got this other one, humanist aggressor. Rolo, how much has the decline in testosterone levels driven this?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Chemicals, all that kind of stuff.
Is it possible that young men simply have less desire to get laid? That could,
I think it's part of it.
You know what? That might be one factor amongst all these other ones that we've been discussing. Yeah, I think
somebody's got to line up here. Wives are expensive prostitutes. No, because with prostitutes, at least you're guaranteed the end product. With wives, not so much.
At least they try hard. At least the prostitute is interested in her own performance. She doesn't have to worry. Yeah, the prostitute wants future business. That's why. Anyways, but Doug, to answer the question, yeah, I think so, especially decline in sperm rates. And yeah, there's xenoestrogens and all that other stuff. I made the foolish decision to talk to a New York Times reporter about that. But that's
whom we won't mention.
Yeah, whom we won't mention. But it kind of opened my eyes up to a lot of what guys are talking. I mean, people want to say, "Oh, it's this conspiracy theory," you know. Well, a lot of diet programs have been conspiracy theories too, right? I think that that's definitely something that's part of it. How big of a role it actually plays, I don't know. We also have record obesity rates. We also have record sedentary lives. We also have record, what is it? Heart disease is #1 killer, right? I mean, what is that from? From like diet and from a lack of exercise. I would say that probably a lot of our physical condition has something to do with the fact that we're not getting laid, or we don't want to get laid. Chuck Myers, you guys can throw these questions in now. I think we just got past the 2:30 here. It's 5:30 where everybody else is at. Chuck Myers, I just dumped my 6-month girlfriend after going through her phone and catching texts in front of her eyes. Had given her number to some guy. To be fair, she didn't respond to his texts. Was that too extreme? Well, I think when you start snooping around in your girlfriend's phone, the reason you do that, the reason that you're suspicious, is because there's something in your hindbrain or something that instinctually wrong that you felt. You wouldn't like. I think the bigger question is, why did you feel the need to go through her and confirm? I mean, you confirmed your suspicions, but why did you have those suspicions in the first place? And so when guys tell me this, like, hey, Rolo, should I go fish through her phone and see if she's been cheating on me or see if she's talking to other guys? I will guarantee you that if your wife or your girlfriend is in any way active on social media or on Instagram, or if you're stupid enough to be an Instagram husband and take pictures of her and put them on there, you get what you deserve. So
I will tell you this too about snooping. Not only as a spouse or partner, whatever you want to call it, but even as a parent. Once you go, I can tell you story after story about parents who have had suspicions about a kid, teenager, maybe a boy or a girl, and they go and they start looking, and I'm telling you, it never ends well. I've never had any parent come back to me and go, "Wow, what a relief that was," because they find out stuff they just had no clue about, and it's just. You can't close the door once you've opened it.
That's true. I want to get to that. Hold that thought. We'll take some super chats here, but we're down an hour. So I wanted to say, hit the like button if you have not. This has been a really good. Thank you we got a really high viewers. Thank you. And yeah, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed. We're growing and growing and growing, man. We just passed the 13,000 mark just this week, which was great. I will be at the 21 convention, and you will be at the 21 convention. It's the Patriarch's edition of the 21 convention in May this year.
Plus the actual 21 in the fall.
Yeah, the actual one, which is, I don't know that we have dates for that just yet. Also, anyways, the dates for the Patriarch's convention is May 3rd through the 5th. Get your tickets today if you are still on the fence, because the ticket prices are going to go up. That's how the mechanics work. I want to also say, I usually say this right around this time because we're a month out. If you really want to go to this, and I would encourage like fathers, and even if you're a father and you want to bring your son, do that. Or if you're a son and you want to bring your dad, please do that as well. We've had several guys do that in the past. Certainly ever since the Man in Demand conference. That was great. Anyways, so if you want to do that, if you're divorced, I'm going to be doing a couple of workshops. One of them is going to be with Elliot Hulse. I can announce that now. We're going to be talking about religion and the red pill. We're going to be talking about a little bit more. I'm the down to earth guy. I get to play Aristotle and he gets to play Plato. So we're going to do kind of a tag team workshop. I'm also going to do another workshop, which is going to be about men getting back into the sexual marketplace after divorce. And if you are a parent, if you are a red pill parent, you want to be a red pill parent, this is definitely your convention to go to. If you cannot afford it, hit me up in my, just email me, look for the email addresses in this. If you can't afford it, if you really want to go, but you say, oh, Rolla, I can't afford to get to this one, but I really want to, hit me up. I'll see what I can do. We'll work something out with Anthony. Everybody thinks, oh, Rolla just does all this stuff for the money. I'm not doing anything for them. I don't need to do this for money. That's for sure. But I want to help guys out. And if you want to go and you think that it's too expensive, hit me up. Ask me if there's something you can do or whatever, and I'll be happy to do it. Poland is confirmed now. We are going to be huge. 21. It's going to be.
You got your passport?
Huge. Yes. I actually, I'm glad you reminded me. I got to start working on. My birthday is on Tuesday of this week, April 2nd. So
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. That reminded me because it's my birthday and I need to get my my passport renewed. Poland, Warsaw, Poland, July 18th through the 21st. And that just got confirmed. I'm looking at the venue. I can't tell you where the venue is, but it's in Warsaw, Poland. And you're right. This is going to be a really big deal.
I'm jazzed because what Anthony's been talking about, Warsaw, or just Poland in general, it's like the last place that's normal in Europe, but it's actually better in some ways, especially when it comes to the
last dating of the red pill.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. It's where guys are guys and women are women. You know.
Yep. All right, so we got that going on, and is there anything you and I will be together on Friday at 9:05 a.m. on the Pat Campbell Show, terrestrial radio show. Check my Twitter feed for the links. Actually, you can check the description here, and I put the AM 1170.
Did you have a bonus question today? We didn't hit sexual zoning.
I didn't have a bonus question, but we can talk about sexual zoning. I want to get to these last things here. I got one from YOLO here. He said, YOLO. Hi, Rollo. What do you think about the 5 love languages, but the book, The 5 Love Languages? Is it useful for a red pill? I have read it. I kind of hold it on par with Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I think it is Oprah, very Oprah, school of Oprah kind of stuff. Guys always give me so much grief about this because I'm not a big fan of like Dita. Is it David Dita? Like that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the category I put this in. I see if you read anything I've written about love, I look at it from a much more down to earth perspective, where men tend to be more idealistic about love and women tend to be more opportunistic when it comes to love.
We got to do the Hathaways.
Yeah, we're going to definitely need to do a full episode on the differences between those two. As far as my opinion on that book, I think it's one more attempt to categorize to make people predictable and controllable. Is there anything else in here? Do we have another one? No. Okay. So what was the question we wanted to run?
Sexual zoning. First of all, tell us what it is, what it means.
All right. So I wrote this is actually the link to this post is in the description. It's called Sexual Zoning. And the reason I brought this up is because I think that when we talk about men not wanting to approach women or not knowing when and where they can approach, I think one of the reasons why the red pill is popular right now, or even, the Lost Boys have become sort of this niche market because they don't know what to do and they don't know how to go about approaching women or how to deal with women in general. And part of the reason for that is they don't understand what I call sexual zoning. I'll give you an example. If you're in your workplace, that is not a sexual zone. What that means is don't go picking up chicks at your work. Okay, that is a that's a dangerous zone.
Say don't crap where you don't. What is it? Don't shit where you eat.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah.
So that's one zone. Okay. The other zone is like, say, the club. You're going in and you're running night game or something like that at a nightclub in Las Vegas. Okay. That's a sexual zone. Why? Because women are going there because they want to open themselves to the prospect of meeting a hot guy, going home with that guy, or setting something up, or, and finding some sort of romantic connection with the dude there. Okay. That is a sexual zone. Those are.
That's the one you always find a good girl at church.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the next question I wanted to ask. Is church a sexual zone?
I think it can be.
Can it?
Remember the guy that called into you who was going, he was out there, gotten divorced and all this other stuff, but he went to a Bible study at one of these big mega churches here. And he was telling me, he said he had two women, single moms. They weren't interested in getting married, but they were interested in sex. One sent him a topless photo. The other sent him a complete nude. This is at church. This is a Bible study. These chicks are sending him, texting him pictures, naked pictures.
Well, and that's a perfect example of why I say guys are confused as to what is a sexual zone and what is not a sexual zone. Because once you get out of the most obvious places, that's when things get ambiguous. So when guys, like when pickup artists are trying to do day game and they're hitting up girls on the streets of London or wherever it is that they're doing it in the UK. Is that a sexual zone? Is that not a sexual zone? Are women looking to, are they looking for a guy at that point, or what should be? And the problem is that because we don't know what that zoning is, that sexual zoning is, that opens up men to a lot of dangers, particularly in the Me Too era. So if a guy goes up to a woman and runs day game on her, technically right now, I think I just read a story about a guy who was a pickup artist who went to jail, who got arrested for doing that, because that is a hate crime right now. It's a hate crime to go and talk to. They say it's harassment, and all the guy's doing is saying, "Hey, how you doing? What's up?" Or for instance, that one, that part of the Gillette commercial where that one guy was about to go, like a hot girl walks past him on the street, and the guy's like, he's about to go, and the brother's like, "No, man, not cool. So it's not cool to go and introduce yourself and to talk to a girl on the street? No, not cool. Well, is that a sexual zone? Is that not a sexual zone? What we're teaching our guys is that there is no sexual zones, that you should just wait for it. Do you know what Sadie Hawkins is? The Sadie Hawkins dance? Okay. Sadie Hawkins is where the girls ask the guys out. They supposedly flip the scripts, and it was a big deal, I think, since like the 70s or something like that, where the girls are supposed to, be assertive and ask the guys out to the dance. Right. Well, we are now living in Sadie Hawkins' world. And
my youngest daughter, she's a sophomore in high school. They had a dance like that at school back. It was before I went to the 21 convention, because I talked about dress selection, but where the girl asks the guy to go and the girl buys the ticket. I'm like, you kidding me? It's like everything's backwards. Yeah, but that's what they do.
And that I'm glad we got into that, because that is exactly what I was describing before, where women want to ensure that they are always in 100% control of their own sexual selectivity. So what they're saying when it comes to, like, we have that one joke where like the hot guy says, "Hey, how you doing?" And the girl's like, "Oh, great." And then the other big fat guy comes along and he says the exact same words. And the girl's like, calling HR, "Oh my God, I've just been harassed." What we're saying, the message that we're giving young men today is that they should know better. That if you are a beta, if you are a chump, you should know that you're a chump. And because you know you're a chump, don't try to pass yourself off as being anything other than what you are. So that's what I wrote. Go ahead.
Here's another problem with this, though, and this is actually out of the sexual dynamics. Most people, Brian Tracy and others talk about this, especially when it comes to sales. Most people never ask for the sale. They never ask for it. 95% of people don't ask for the sale. Why? Because they fear rejection. And if they do ask for it, if they get shut down once, they'll never try again because they got rejected and they cannot deal with rejection.
Yeah, well, and that's hard, right? I mean, but that's what we as men, and if you're taking notes, here's a note to take. As men, you will always face more rejection than women. You will always face more rejection, whether that's professionally, whether that's in your family, whether whatever you want to do, you will face more rejection because we expect men. What's ironic about this is we expect men to be the initiators, but if they're not initiators, then suddenly they're not assertive, or they're not real men because they're not going out and doing that. And what you want to know why guys aren't getting laid right now is because they don't see any reason for them to go and be the initiator. They don't see any reason for that. Because let's go MGTOW again. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. That's what they see. And on top of that, women, what's the message women are saying? You should know that if you're beta, you don't approach me. You should only approach me if you're alpha. And you should only approach a woman if you know that she is going to be attracted to you. And again, Sadie Hawkins' world. So we flip the script and we expect women to go, and who are they going to go after? Are they going to go after the average Joe beta guy, just the guy? No, they're not. They're going to go for the top 20%, which is exactly what we see in these stats. So think
about how many couples out there, people that got together eventually, maybe even got married, have a nice long-term relationship. Okay. Initially, the girl said no, but the guy was persistent. He kept going and going. Nowadays, if you get a no on the first one, you're not even going to try the second, because then it becomes harassment.
And that's what they want to say is they want to say that men who aren't persistent are cowards, right? Are they cowards, or are they just simply, cutting their losses? Are they simply saying, you know what? Okay, she said no, I'm out. Forget it. I'm not going to bother with this anymore. I'm done. And maybe the woman really wants him to. He just wants him to try harder. Well, sorry, but we live in the age of Me Too, and trying harder gets me put in jail. So I think that one of the reasons that you see these stats right now is because men will select themselves out. They're not as insistent, and is that insistent, not being insistent, or that is not cowardice, it's caution. Men aren't fearful of working with women in the workplace. They are cautious of working with women in the workplace. I'm reading story after story about like the mentor her hashtag mentor her, right? I think it was Ariana Huffington who put that out there, because all these guys in the workplace were like, you know what? I'm not going to go and do anything social with this chick. I'm not going to try to start anything up at work. We're going to, if we have to go on a work trip, she sleeps in one room, on the opposite end of the, the hotel from me, whatever, anything that they can do to segregate themselves apart. That's what we're doing, is segregation. And I'm not going to gloss myself, but I'm going to gloss myself. I talked exactly about this in the State of the Manosphere address in 2018. Why I said we are rapidly reaching a point where we will be a segregated society, and it will be segregation, not because we will be segregating men and women, not because of religion, but because of safety, because of caution, because we don't want to intermingle with them, because if we do, we get Kavanaugh, we have a
Mike Pence world.
Yeah, we're going to live. It's going to be a Sadie Hawkins world, and it's going to be a Mike Pence world. That's where we're going. I got another one here. Hang on. Joe Sherwood, should I feel bad for having multiple plates and not being honest with all of them? And my wife and I are separated, but talking, and I tell her I'm not seeing anyone. What about that? I don't know. You know what, dude? Email me and ask me that question. That is a little bit more than I have time to go into right now. I'd be happy to help you out with that, Joe. When it comes to plates, I always think that it's good to be above board when you are dating non-exclusively. Again, spinning plates does not necessarily mean you're having sex with all of your plates. It means that you have other options. It means you are exploring your options. That's the polite way of saying it. You don't have to tell them about the other one. In fact, I would say don't tell them about the other one. I would say let them come to that conclusion on their own. If you're a high value, but we were just talking about this all this whole show. If you're one of these guys that women are happy to share, You don't have to go say, okay, you're sharing me with so-and-so. You just say, hey, you know what? I'm seeing a lot of people, you know. Was it remember in the Breakfast Club when Claire goes up to Bender and she's looking through his wallet and she's looking through his pictures and he's got all these girls in the girl pictures in his wallet and she goes, are all these your girlfriends? He looks at her and he says, some of them I consider girlfriends, some of them I just consider. That's the attitude that you need to have when it comes to spinning plates.
Wow. You know, I had a question from a listener in Tulsa last week. I didn't get to it on air, but it was a similar situation like that. The guy's single, never been married. He said he's dating 2 women, and he told me he wasn't particularly religious, wasn't brought up in any church or anything like that, but he felt like he was doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. He said, ask her all why.
Sure. Okay. Well, and that goes back to what Joe was asking me here too, is the reason that it feels wrong is because we raise our boys to believe in that monogamous standard that we were talking about, the socially enforced monogamy. We want to teach all men to be monogamous, because even if that guy is a super alpha male, we still want him to believe it's in the best interest of women for him to for him to believe that he should feel moral guilt for being a 2-timer, right? For being non-exclusive. We want him to feel guilt for that, because what that does is it ensures that he's going to be parentally invested in one woman all the time. So that's why you feel those pangs of guilt, because we teach our boys from a very early age. Disney teaches our boys from a very early age that they don't want to be players. They don't want. Remember in Beauty and the Beast, there's Beauty and the Beast, and there's Belle, and there's the Beast, and then there's Gaston, right? We don't want to be like Gaston. We want to be like the nice, you know, the beastly prince, right? We want to eventually turn into the prince. Well, guess what? Gaston has all kinds of chicks that are like riding on him and want to get with him. Yeah. Why is that? Well, he doesn't feel any guilt for that, because he knows that, you know, he is desired, because he's one of the top tier alpha guys. So.
Yeah. He's also desired by the other guy. The new one.
Yeah, that too.
A little creepy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we should talk about that sometime when we get into I think maybe next week we should probably talk about paternity and why men feel like why is it that men's biological imperative is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, yet we are brought up to believe in a standard of enforced monogamy? Why is that? We could probably answer that question in an upcoming show.
Why do you feel guilty? Should you feel guilty? You know, you've seen the movie The Devil's Advocate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Pacino, who plays John Milton, he asks Kevin Lomax, he says, who are you carrying all that guilt around for? He says, put it down. It's like a bag of bricks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, most guys, like I laugh when people keep saying that the red pill wants to turn guys into players. No, nobody. I want you to do whatever the hell you want to do with the information that I give you. If you want, people worry about that. Like they say, well, oh man, the red pill and the Manosphere, they're teaching these guys to be arrogant assholes. They're teaching them to be to just, you know, use women disposably or whatever. It's like, that is like the least of our problems in the Manosphere. You know what the biggest problem is? It's guys who are locked into the soulmate myth. It's guys who are too passive. It's guys who don't make themselves their mental point of origin. And just for me to even suggest that a guy should like think about himself at the beginning of whatever decision, just for me to say, hey, look, hey, why don't you think about yourself? Why don't you put yourself on the pedestal that you have women on right now? Oh my God, I can't believe it. He's teaching them to be, you know, Machiavellian dark triad assholes. No, I'm not.
Another one we need to get into is whether or not marriage should be a lifetime commitment. There's nothing else you ever get into. Mm-hmm. You know, whether a car, buying a house. I mean, what can you go, like 30 years max? Yeah. There was a movement a couple of years ago to like have a license you renewed every 5 years, sort of like a professional athlete. You know, I'm a free agent now. Mm-hmm. That one
renegotiate your contract.
That'd be something else.
Wasn't there like a Celtic way of, maybe it was in Ireland or something like that, where like you'd be married for 8 years, and then at the end of 8 years, if you're still in love with her or whatever, you could like, you know, be unmarried, I guess. I don't know how that works.
It sounds like the 7-year itch.
Yeah. I think that there was something like that. I want to say it was in Celtic cultures. I've been doing some research on marriage. I think that might have been one.
Here's the thing. Since reading The Rational Male, the other 2 books, okay, it's opened my eyes. I can't even go to church on Sunday without seeing how I'm being programmed from the
red pill lens.
Every week. I told you about the bishop, you know, Everybody should have a special friend, somebody they can confide in, somebody they can tell their deepest secrets to. And if you're married, that better be your wife. And if it's not, you're a bad person.
Right. Well, because I understand where guys like in the TradCon set they mean well. They honestly mean, they think that they're doing humanity a favor by reinforcing the feminine imperative.
The family unit, you know, intact.
Yeah, that and in and of itself, that's not a bad thing, but it's just how they do it and why. The motivation and the incentive behind it is really where they go wrong. They you know, I've always said this, like men and women are complements to each other. We are biologically complementary. We're psychologically complementary. Better together than we are apart. And if you are one of my critics and you think that all I'm about is just coming down and beating down on women, I'll tell you right now, we are better together than we are apart. That's what gets me into so much trouble with the MGTOWs. That's what gets me into so much trouble with PUAs as well, is I happen to believe that men and women are better or complements to one another. And I can show you a dozen different ways, physical, neurological ways, why we are in fact complements to one another. The problem is we live in a society right now that prioritizes men above women, or excuse me, prioritizes women above men. Okay. We have made it, we've turned society into a gynocracy from the time when we were in, you know, the 60s, since the sexual revolution. And up until that point, there were checks and balances on hypergamy. And with the advent of hormonal birth, unilaterally female-controlled hormonal birth control, we have changed the rules. And what have women done since then is they use that to every advantage. Why are there more guys who aren't getting laid right now? Well, imagine that. We've unfettered hypergamy for the last 60 years. And in the last 10 or so, suddenly we see that guys, you know, I would suggest that the guys who aren't getting laid are the beta guys that women don't want to have anything to do with. So either they opt out, those men opt out of the sexual marketplace, or they are selected out of the sexual marketplace, and they don't know how to get laid. They don't know why they're not getting laid, or else they know why. And they say, you know what? I'm done. I'm going my own way. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm not going to feel any shame or guilt over it. I think what would have been really funny is if you would have polled those same guys and said, you know, do you feel bad about this? And I would say probably more than half of them would be like, no, whatever. It's Sadie Hawkins' world. You know, I can't go and do anything, because if I do, I'll go to jail. If I make a move, I'll go to jail. And now, do I think that they're right? No. But again, you're separating the sexes. We're better together than we are apart, but we have gone to great lengths to make sure that we are segregated. Just like I was saying before, we're segregating our sexes in every way imaginable. And the workplace is the easiest place to see this. But we're segregating churches. We're segregating schools. We're segregating, and we talked about that today too. We're segregating every aspect of societies to make it as difficult as possible for men and women to come together and have healthy relationships and have healthy families, right? Why would you get married today? It's absolutely insanity. People say, well, Rollo, you have a great marriage. Why are you so anti-marriage? I'm not anti-marriage. I'm not even anti people coming together. I'm anti-marriage in the sense that it is a all downside prospect for guys right now. I would love to see a new social legal situation where men and women could come together, have good relationships, and yes, have a good marriage as well. I would love to see that happen, but it ain't happening in this environment, not in this era, not in this era of distrust, this era of separation and sexual segregation. That's why I keep calling this a gender war. It is a gender cold war, but you're going to see more and more of this as we move into the 2020 election cycle. You're going to see men are bad, men are bad, men are bad, men are bad. That's all you're going to see. We just had that Converse commercial, like men are assholes, but women are empowered, and we don't care. And we're going to go and take on the world, or we're going to have an all-female spacewalk, in the space capsule that men built, and in the space suits that men built, and in the space station that men designed and built. No, we're going to go and prove to the world how independent we are. And I don't know. I think right now we're in a social state of gender cold war, and all we're doing is separating and segregating the sexes that much more.
All right, let's wrap it up.
All right.
Join us again next week, 4:30, what, Eastern time, right?
4:30 Eastern time. What else do we have going on? We have your show on Friday. We have the which is 9:05 a.m. Look on either one of our Twitter feeds for the link to that. If you want to listen live, if you want to get up in the morning and listen live. Yeah, instead of sleeping in. Or you can catch us on the Red Man group. I gotta get you back on the Red Man group, man. We gotta have you on, even if it's the Patriarch show. That'd be a kind of cool. Oh, that's another thing. Patriarch show is on Thursday, 8:30 Eastern this Thursday. I don't know what the topic is, but look at the check out the feed for the Red Man group. You'll see it.
I might be able to do next Saturday with the Red Man.
Okay.
So.
Cool. I'll keep you in mind. Hey, we just had I don't know if you did you catch the episode with Tate on there?
Yes.
Yesterday. That was really fun. Every time he's on, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you. And we will see you next week.